Okay, the last part of the video we have is on combining these logarithmic expressions. Okay, so combining is just the opposite of expanding. You're going to be starting out with this whole big long string, and then you are going to combine it into a single logarithm. And what I mean by that is at the end of this, we're going to have a log base 3 of this whole mess of stuff in here. But there is only one logarithm. So when you're combining these together, each time you combine, you will lose a logarithm, and you will finish when there is only one logarithm left. Now, if you guys remember, our steps that we had last time was we dealt with division. That's obviously a D, division. Then we did multiplication. And then we did our exponents, and we looked to see if we could simplify anything. Okay? So on this one, since we're doing the reverse, it would seem logical that we are going to go in the reverse direction. Okay? And that is true. We are going to start out with exponents. The first thing I'm going to do when I'm trying to solve this problem is I'm going to look for anything out in front, and I'm going to move that up on top. So I see this 2 out in front here. That means that that 2 can move up to the exponent up above. Okay? So when I do that, I end up with a log base 3 of x plus a log base 3 of x minus 1 squared minus a log base 3 of x plus 1. Okay? So I'm doing the reverse of our last. I did exponents first. Now, this is where it does get a little bit different, because your second step is either going to be division or multiplication. Okay? And when you do your division and multiplication steps on this, how do you decide what to do first? You're going to start on the left and work right. Okay? So if I'm dealing with a problem and I've got a log base 3 of x plus a log base 3 of x to the, log base 3 of x minus 1 squared, I'm going to combine that first because it's the first one on the left side. Versus, if I'm dealing with this one here, yes, I'm moving that up. Yes, I'm moving that up. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to deal with this one first. Even though it's not multiplication, I'm going to combine whatever's on the left side of it first. Okay? So the order of combining with multiplication or combining with division, you're just going to start on the left, and that's how you are going to combine those things. Okay? So, first thing that I need to combine is I need to combine a log base 3 of x plus a log base 3 of x minus 2. And how do I know? Do I combine that with division or with multiplication? Well, I'm going to look at that sign right there. And addition tells me that I need to multiply this x and this x minus 1 squared. I'm going to be multiplying to combine those two. So those two logarithms combine to one single logarithm, log base 3 of, and then I've got an x times an x minus 1 squared. So I take my x and I take my x minus 1 squared, and I combine those two together. And I knew that I was going to multiply when I combined them because that had a plus sign there. Okay? And then I just bring down the rest of it. I still have got a minus log base 3 of x plus 1. Okay? All right, so that's combining with our multiplication there. We did the multiplication because that was the first part that showed up. So now I'm going to look down, and I've got my next two logarithms. Log base 3 of x times x minus 1 squared minus log base 3 of x plus 1. So now I need to combine those two together. So I'm going to be taking my x times x minus 1 squared, and I'm going to combine that with my x plus 1. And how am I going to combine those together? Am I going to divide or am I going to multiply? Well, I'm going to look at this sign right here, and that minus sign tells me that I need to divide those two things. And I'm going to do that by combining it into a single logarithm. So I'm going to have a log base 3 of. On top, I've got an x times x minus 1 squared. And then divided by, because minus tells me division, and x plus 1 on the bottom. And that is all in one single logarithm. Okay? So my answer that I have is log base 3 of x times x minus 1 squared divided by x plus 1. Okay? And the only thing that you can do as far as simplifying your answer is sometimes you'll have multiple x's you can cancel. Sometimes you might have an x plus 1 and x plus 1 you can cancel. But for this one, there's nothing alike. So there's nothing that I can cancel on this here. That's just my final answer. Okay? We're going to do one more combining practice. Okay? So this one here, again, we start out with our exponent. So is there anything that I can move? I've got that 1/2 would move up to the exponent. And I've got that 2 that would move up to the exponent. So I've got a log base 5 of x to the 1/2 power minus a log base 5 of x minus 3 minus a log base 5 of x squared. Okay, so first step is exponents. Get those exponents up. Now I'm just going to start combining, working from left to right. Okay, so these two logarithms here, I'm going to combine those two. I've got an x to the 1/2 power, and I'm going to combine that with an x minus 3. How do I combine those two? Well, I'm going to look at the sign in the middle. It's a minus sign, which tells me that I'm going to be dividing to combine those two. Combining them into a single logarithm, it's a log base 5 of, on top, I've got an x to the 1/2, and on the bottom, I have an x minus 3. Okay? So x to the 1/2 divided by, I knew that because of the subtraction sign, my x minus 3. Okay? They combined into a single logarithm. Then I still have this minus log base 5 of x squared. Okay? So, now I'm going to combine these two logarithms. I've got an x to the 1/2 divided by an x minus 3. And then I've also got an x squared. So how am I going to combine these two together? Well, I'm going to look at my sign again here. And I'm going to combine this into a single logarithm. So I'm going to have a log base 5 of x to the 1/2 over x minus 3 divided by x squared. So I've got this fraction here divided by that fraction there. And that's way too confusing. We can simplify this. Okay? If I'm taking a fraction divided by a fraction, okay, and I can make that x squared into a fraction, right? I just got to put it over 1. This is x squared over 1. Okay? So now you guys can see I've got a fraction divided by a fraction. Well, that's really going to be a log base 5 of, that's just a fraction divided by a fraction, right? Okay? If you guys remember back to middle school, if you are taking a fraction divided by a fraction, you are actually going to be multiplying by the reciprocal. So what is the reciprocal? Well, we just flip that fraction to find that. That gives me 1 over x squared. And then this comes our first case where there's actually something that we can cancel. I've got an x to the 1/2 and I've got an x here on my diagonals. I can take away half of an x. And if I take away half of an x from 2, if I've got 2 fulls and I take away a half, I'm still left with 3 halves. So I've got 3 halves on the bottom. Okay? So my final answer for this here, I'm going to have to put it on the other side because I ran out of room, is going to be a log base 5 of everything canceled on the top. So I still have a 1 up top. Over, on the bottom, I have an x to the 3 halves power times an x minus 3. So 1 over x to the 3 halves power times an x minus 3. And that's my answer there. It is in a single logarithm. Okay, cannot have multiple logs as we're working through that. These two were being subtracted, which made us divide. These two were also being subtracted, which made us divide. And then for this case, we had a fraction divided by a fraction, which is really a fraction times the reciprocal. Once I simplified, that was my final answer.